Good morning. I am Steve Weber. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show on Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. Show number 140. 140 shows already. We're just rolling like a steamroller. We're just rolling on down the road here. We're having a good time. So anyway, today is, as I said, Wednesday, March 10th, and I have a guest. I have a whimsical, fun guest coming up today, Penelope Pendragon, and we'll just leave it at that until I introduce her. But she's going to be a lot of fun. So that's coming up at about 15 past the hour. And my monologue today is stepping into character, and I'm really inspired by Penelope, what she is doing, and it really kind of reminded me of what I did for 15 years when I stepped into character on a regular basis, and a little bit of what I had to learn how to do that on a regular basis. So anyway, that's coming up just after the announcements this morning. All righty, very good. So here is what is coming up the rest of this week, and then the beginning part of next week, and then the whole month of March and the beginning of April, because I got an adventure coming up. So first of all, this week, Thursday, tomorrow, Christy Holt, she is the CEO of Vibionics, and Vibionics is a company that is measuring the vibration of your voice, and it will give you feedback on what your mood is like. So imagine your voice as a fingerprint, a thumbprint, and it's basically being able to using technology to give you feedback on where you're at vibrationally. So that's going to be tomorrow. Vibionics, Christy Holt. Friday, Greg Thompson joins me. Greg and I have known each other for, close to 15 years, I guess, maybe just shy of that. But anyway, from the celebrity impersonator days, and Greg is still going strong on it. He is an impersonator. He's an entertainer himself, but he's got a production. He's got an agency that books different acts, and he is the founder. Him and his wife Jackie are the founders of the Sunburst Convention, which basically was for celebrity impersonators. And so anyway, Greg has been in the industry and the business. We've known each other, and he's going to come on and share what he's up to and what the future looks like for celebrity impersonators. So that's going to be a fun conversation on this Friday. All right, now Monday, I'm planning to do a live show to be announced. We'll still fill that in. A couple guests coming up. Thinking about Tuesday, Amy Gray Cunningham. She was here 2 weeks ago, and or a week and a half ago, but it'll be 2 weeks to the next Tuesday. It'll be 2 weeks from her last appearance. She's coming back, and she is the living kidney donor, and she talked about her book. Now, this time we're going to talk about the Akashic records. She did a reading. She accessed my Akashic records, and this is your soul's history for all eternity, the Akashic records. So we'll talk about what that is, and we'll talk about what she discovered when she accessed my Akashic records. That's next Tuesday. Wednesday, I have a mini segment with our fitness misfit, Stacy Redfield. She'll be joining us, and so anyway, and another guest. We're not sure about announcing that, but immediately after that. After the show next Wednesday, I'm going to get on a plane and I'm flying to California, and I will be on a 3.5 week adventure where I'm driving a car from the West Coast back to the East Coast. But I'm not just driving the car across country. I'm going to stop and visit lots of friends and people from the Spirituality Gone Wild community. I'll be in Southern California for I'll be in Northern California for about 3 or 4 days. I'll be in Southern California for almost a week. Then I go over to Boulder for a couple of days, Boulder, Colorado, Kansas City, up to Chicago, Fort Wayne, Pittsburgh area, and then back home, April 10th. So I will be doing my show from the road for the next 3.5 weeks, starting next Thursday, technically. And I'll be a little bit sporadic in terms of when I may change the timing a little bit in terms of what time I broadcast. I might just do some spontaneous shows as I kind of have a guest with me. So we'll figure that out, and I'll keep you posted. But basically, the show's going to be on the road for the next 3.5 weeks, starting April 18th. I fly on the 17th, and then April 18th, Thursday, a week from, is today Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. So yeah, a week from today is when I fly. So anyway, that's what's coming up. All righty, that's it. All right, so now let me go ahead and shift gears and get into the monologue. And I'm just talking about stepping into character. And our guest, Penelope Pendragon, she steps into character when she does her well, she's going to explain what she does. But anyway, it reminded me of what I did for 15 years when I was being Forrest Gump. So I regularly would step into character, and I would also regularly step out of character. So that was my cycle for 15 years. So I was like either in character, going into character, or I was, stepping out of character. And it was really like a back and forth aspect of my life. And there was a blurry line in terms of like, well, where does Steve start and stop, and where does Forrest Gump start and stop, and what's the flow and the balance between them? And I used to think that I had a pretty clear boundary line, but I'm rethinking that, and I'm realizing that was actually kind of a fuzzy, hazy time of my life, in the sense that those characters blended. Steve and Forrest, they became kind of one and the same in many different ways, and I loved it. And when I was performing, it was pure joy and just pure fun. It was just being simple. It was just having a good time, connecting with people. And fortunately, I was smart enough to figure that out pretty early on, and I embraced it. And, I developed the shtick. I mean, I used to call it my shtick, the Gump shtick. And, it was like a routine that I had, and I went through that, and I people loved doing it, and people loved experiencing it, and I love doing it. So, and I could just drop in and out of character like on a dime without thinking about it much. It was just sort of like automatic. It was like a muscle that you'd had developed. It was a finely tuned, I was in good shape. That muscle was in good shape, and I could just whoop, back and forth. So, now what it did though, is it forced me to learn how to be in the moment. And I had to be fully present. So when I was in character, I had to be fully present. That was probably the most important thing that went on in my mind when I was figuring all that out. And it's like, oh, I gotta just stay right where I'm at, right here, present right now. Who am I talking to? Don't be thinking about like what I'm going to do next week, or what I'm going to be having for dinner that night, or what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. None of that mattered. I had to be just 100% present. And I learned how to do that. And it was fun. But in order to do that, I had to learn a couple different things. First, there were physical needs that I had in order to be able to sit there on the bench interacting with people for about a 5-hour stretch, nonstop. I needed like a lot of rest. I had to, sleep well, and that wasn't a problem. I had time to do that. But I developed like the appreciation and the realization that my body needed to be well rested in order for me to, perform at that high level. Nutrition, I had to be fueled up. I had to, I had a routine of what I ate before I went and performed, because I was going to do a 5-hour stretch, and I wasn't going to be eating during that time. And so I had to kind of, like what I ate for breakfast, and then what I would eat kind of for a lunch, or like right before I went into my performing and routine. Like I had to all figured out, and it would get me to the end of that day. And then of course I was hungry and ate a nice dinner. Hydration was really important. Drinking lots of glasses of water when I was sitting. I was sitting outside on a park bench in front of the Bubba Gump restaurants, and I would drink, 4 or 5 big glasses of water during the course of that time. And it was just kind of that was the routine. And I've since learned that, water is really important when you're moving energy. When you're doing a lot of energy work, you want to, drink, keep yourself nice and hydrated, keep your body flushing, removing, whatever they're called, biologically, I'm not sure, but it's like that, those negative energy or particles or pieces from your body, just keep them flowing and keep yourself cleansed. So anyway, hydration was super important. Now, the mental needs, where I had to be in a good mood, I had to show up with my A game. It was really hard to do sitting on the bench talking to people if I was not in a good mood. I learned that really early on, so that was part of, physically taking care of myself, but mentally being ready to go. And I said my A game. Well, I didn't think about it then, but A is for what? Attitude, right? So you have to have a good attitude. There were spiritual needs too. I didn't think about them so much that way, but as I'm reflecting on it now, I had a lot of gratitude. I had a lot of gratitude for a couple things. The fact that I had this physical gift, right? I looked like Forrest Gump, and that was great. And I was appreciative of that. And I always looked at that like, wow, that's sort of a special thing. And I that's cool. And so, I also had the mental ability to just engage with people and the skill of being, interested in people, liking people. I would often meet people who didn't, how do I want to say this? I meet people who like kind of suspected the worst of people, or they were like suspicious of people. And I realized when I would be talking to that person that, gosh, I'm actually always expecting the best in people. And so I kind of just, embraced everybody and let them come to me. And it was, I didn't have like negative energy flowing. I had positive energy flowing, for the most part. So that was, I was trusting of people, I guess is what I should say. I assumed the best of them. The connectedness to spirit. I was talking about the physical and the mental part, but there was something else that happened when I was performing. I would like kind of go off into like I don't want to say it was a trance, because I was fully aware of what I was doing, but there was like an entity that kind of took over, and it was like craziness or zaniness that would embark. And every once in a while I'd say something that was just completely over the top, and I'd laugh and everybody else would laugh. And, a lot of what I was doing was an act and a routine, but a lot of it just was that pure magical being in the moment. And, that connected that at a higher level source energy would come through and take over. So, I was always aware of when it was showtime. In other words, I was respectful of the fact that like when I went there and, showed up and, got there, I, was ready to perform. And like the minute I walked out into the public, it was showtime and you had to go. And I would really work to raise my vibration level so that I was, performing at a higher level or connecting to that spirit, connecting to the artist muse, that people, artists always talk about how they get that inspiration. I felt that a lot. This has nothing to do with stepping in the character per se, but it has to do with just being in character. It was always easier once I got in the character to stay in character than it was if I was to try to like back out of the character, go back to being Steve, go back to the character. And there were times when that was required. And like when I was going to a TV studio and meeting people, I had to be the character, but people also wanted to know who I was. And so I had to be Steve. I had to be like a human being and connect with people. And so it was pretty easy in those situations to flip back and forth between it. But like when I was sitting on the bench, there was no going back and forth between the character. I was just 100% in the character. And so it was just, like I said, much easier to stay in character than it was to, kind of back in and out of that. So, and I always, knew like what the mindset was of being Steve versus the mindset of being, being Forrest Gump. And so when I was Forrest Gump, that was it, had that mindset in there and just went with it the whole time. One of the reasons why I think it was easy for me to perform was that, I brought a lot of Steve into the character. So in other words, I brought a lot of my own personality into it. Now, I was the character first and foremost, right? Everybody had to recognize me as Forrest Gump and had to, I had that give that illusion and that idea persona. But the idea that, there was a lot of my own personality that came in and shined through. So if people who knew who knew me, they would see that. People who didn't know it, they didn't know it, but it was they didn't know it was Steve performing, but they could sense that, okay, this guy's doing this interpretation of Forrest Gump in his own style and in his own way. And that was always very evident. And it worked pretty well. And I relied heavily on the look factor, right? Had a strong resemblance. I relied less on and I did enough of the mannerisms. I did a lot of that. In fact, I did a lot of I did enough of the lines from the movie and the interpretation of that to make it all work. The one thing that I would get criticized on, and I never really took it too personal, is that I didn't have the right accent and I didn't have the exact voice. Now, tonality, my voice and Tom Hanks were similar enough that it worked. I used to tell people I got my vocal cords operated on to make it sound more like his voice, and people would be like, really? They can do that? And I'd be like, no, I'm just making that up. So anyway, but the actual Southern accent and that sort of thing, that was part of the one thing that always felt like a bit of a stretch. And so I did it when I had to, but it was what it was. So, now today I do kind of a similar thing. I'm doing my show on a daily basis. When the go live button goes on, you have to get into the character. You have to perform. You guys do that when you're at your job. You're doing your job. You're doing your home family life. When you go home, you got a certain role to play. When you go to work, you got a certain role to play. And like when you walk through the door, boom. It just happens and it just becomes automatic. And so it's kind of one of those things. And so anyway, that's basically my monologue of stepping into character. And, the key thing is, I guess I'll end with this, is that, you step into character, you step out of character. We have different roles we play in our life, and we have to be able to transition quickly from one to the other. All righty. So that is the monologue for today. I see our guest Penelope is in the green room. I hope that the fairies and the elves back in the American Gumption green room have been taking good care of her, giving her nourishment and hydration, so she's ready to perform. So let's go ahead and welcome Penelope Pendragon to the show. Penelope, are you there? Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I am well. It's early here. I'm in California, so it's a little early here.
Thank you for getting up early. I always appreciate that. And I'm coming to California next week, and I'm supposed to do my show at 7:00 in the morning. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll do it like at 10 o'clock. So I have not been sensitive to you Californians. I'm like, just get up early and do it. But anyway, thank you so much for getting up early and for coming and joining us. We just met a couple of weeks ago, and what an interesting life you've lived, Penelope Pendragon. Now, Penelope, before we get into the actual interview portion, I'm going to let you talk a lot, but there's two things that have to happen. There's two rules here. I know you have the wishing wagon. There's probably certain rules that you make the kids go through. We have two rules here. The first rule is I get to read the bio and intro of who you are.
Okay.
You're down with that?
Oh, yes, please.
Then the second rule is I have a guest theme song, and it's called the First Time Guest Theme Song. And I play that song after I read the intro. And if you come back a second time, I won't be allowed to play it because it's like a rule that you're only allowed to play it for the first time. That's why it's called the first time. Yes.
But do I get a second time song?
No, no, everybody gets like a first time. And then they're just, now sometimes people become a regular and then they get their own theme song. But like, if you're just like a guest that comes back a second time or a third time,
whatever.
So, that's right. We can't, we want to make people special, but we don't want to make them too special. So. All right. So let me tell people who you are. So in 2011, Penelope Pendragon created a magical structure called the Whimsical Wish Wagon. The Whimsical Wish Wagon. And I even have I'm going to just do one quick. I don't have a photo of it, but I have this I have this, there it is, whimsical wish
Well, you got
wagon.
a photo. It's in the background. You see it in the background.
Oh, that's like the side of it. There it is.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's
side of
right.
it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, but that's the way. And I'm going to have to ask you why the S and the H in wish are capitalized. I have not been able to figure that out, but don't save that for the interview portion. All right. So, okay. So let's get back to what I'm trying to do here, and that's introduce you. The whimsical wish wagon is best described as law of attraction meets the fairy realm as told by Dr. Seuss. That is cool. We're gonna dive into that. You're gonna have to explain that. Okay. Her whimsical ways and amazing acronyms keep both children and adults entertained. She educates on feeding fairies. Feeding fairies is what? Positive.
Is positive energy. Yeah.
Right. And starving goblins. Starving goblins are
negative energy.
So we don't feed negative energy, do we?
No.
And how to get your wishes to come true. So listen to this quote. This is a Penelope quote. If I can teach the children how to think versus what to think, if I can teach the children how to think versus what to think, it will change the future and we will have peace on this earth. I love that. That is exactly what we have to do.
Well, that's where it starts. How we teach our children is how they grow.
Exactly. So yeah, we don't need to teach people what to think any longer. We've been doing that for a long time. That's like a dead end. That's not the future. Okay. Although she floats around like a woman with no worries, Penelope is no stranger to hardship. Raised with a bipolar sister, married to an abusive man, survivor of cancer, winner of a weight battle, 100 pounds. 100 pounds. Penelope has taken these experiences, learned their lessons, and now translates them into a magical way to others who are going through the same thing. Yeah, the best way to teach is by, kind of sharing what gives permission for other people to just feel like human beings. So
yeah, because we all go through our cycles. We all have our life cycles and we all have our challenges. Everybody's is different than another, but because you're going through it. But when it comes right down to it, if you can relate something and say, oh, I tackled this and this is how I did it, then another person can learn from that. Because sometimes you just get that whole like, oh, it's horrible, things are bad, I'll never succeed and it'll never happen for me. And then you see that it happened for somebody else. Like I survived an abusive marriage, 10 years of hard time. And I say hard time because my husband was a prison guard. So he would come home and all over me. And it really knocks you down. And the weight thing, it's like you can't lose weight. You can't lose weight. I did it for years trying to lose weight. And then finally it was this that changed it. It wasn't necessarily what I was doing because it was my mindset. I stopped saying I can't. I
have my own story about that changing and a big habit going away. So we'll ask me about that later on. All righty. So Penelope Pendragon, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. Are you ready for the first time guest theme song?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Wow, that was spectacular.
Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a show before?
No, I haven't. I was looking for fireworks. I was wondering where those were.
Well, they're on the East Coast where they're going off because it's not so early. But out where you are, it's still too early. We're not allowed. There's an ordinance that says you're not allowed to put the fireworks out there yet. So
yeah, definitely not, especially in this area because I'm in a high desert kind of an area. So you don't want to put the fireworks out here at all.
No, no. Well, good. Well, again, thank you. I'm glad you're here. This is going to be a fun. Gosh, where do we begin? You buy an RV, you make a wagon, you start hauling it around the western states, you're going to fairs, you're having fun, you're talking to kids, you're talking to adults.
It was crazy. It was crazy fun.
How did that happen? I mean, did lightning hit you or something? Something must have happened that you went like, okay, I'm going to get an RV and I'm going to make a wagon and how did it all come about? I mean, what's the story behind the story?
Okay. So, my life shifts really hard, like a hard shift every 10 years.
Okay.
Every 10 years, there's something that just takes me and goes and shifts me and puts me in another direction. And it's been happening right on the 10-year mark. In fact, it just happened 2020, a completely different life, completely different shift. And in 2010, my life decided to shift again. I had obtained the wagon itself, like the actual structure, which was originally, let's go back a little bit. I received it in 2008, but I wished for it in 2002. Inadvertently, I didn't even know. It wasn't something that you know what? Let's go back a little bit more. The word wish, let's just start right there. WISH. It stands for what is stated happens. That's why I put it in a capital W, small I, big S, big H, is because it's an acronym. What is stated happens. Gotcha. In other words, when you state something as if it is true, it becomes a wish and it can come to you. But that includes the things we say like, oh, it's going to be a horrible day. Well, more horrible day is going to come your way because that's a wish. You just said it as if it were true. And now more horrible day is going to come right to you. So you have to be careful what you're wishing for. And that's really the crux of everything. That's like the center of all my teachings. So go ahead.
So this is really this is the law of attraction. I am a big law of attraction fan. How did your law of attraction, when did you get introduced to it? Did you kind of figure it out on your own? Did someone explain it and you went, oh, I already knew this, deep down inside? I mean, how did you get introduced to what we call today the law of attraction?
I was raised in it. My mom is a practitioner for the Center for Spiritual Living. She's a child psychologist, or not psychologist, childhood development specialist. So she does the school counselor thing. And so I was really raised around other kids, younger kids, and my mom would infuse this positive energy in these kids. So really, I have her to thank for that. And it's not like I took it on and went, oh, my mom says this, or even applied it very well early on, but because you go through your life cycles and when you're in your 20s, you just decide that that's the way life is. And but whenever I hit my 40s, or I guess my 30s, when I hit my 30s, I started to really see the law of attraction in action, and started to develop my own version of it. And then gradually it started coming out all in rhyme and started being aimed right at kids. And even though it's under even better, they've got life experiences around them to compare to. And it's beautiful whenever you see the adult go, wow, I have heard this over and over and over again, but now it makes sense. And I think it's because sometimes it gets too technical for people, or too deep, or too spiritual. And sometimes people go all woo-woo on them and then they shut off.
Right.
And that's not okay. We need to know these things. Because we're doing it to ourselves. What we wish for comes around.
Isn't it funny how, in your 20s, like we kind of intellectually know things because we kind of were raised in it. So you're this kid, you're growing up and you're watching your mom, help these other kids, infuse these other kids with like this positive, healthy energy. And of course that's coming to you, but you need to become your own person. You need to develop your own identity. And then you go off and you're doing it. And like one day something happens and you're like, oh, I knew this all along. And it's kind of like an awakening moment. And yet you knew it all along, but you kind of had forgotten it. I don't know if you've had any of those experiences, but I've had lots of them.
Oh, yes, absolutely. At the beginning, everything was more businessy. There were not charts, but like almost spreadsheets of what it was that I was going to tell people, and it was all very very professionally worded. But I'm trying to aim at children, and it wasn't until I was calling myself the wish facilitator. Right? Like anyone knows how to spell the word facilitator, especially a child. And I'm a marketing person, which is funny. I did 20 years in marketing, advertising, and promotion. So and my job was to make you a clever, catchy something to, the creative end of it. And it wasn't until my second year of touring that a bunch of kids that were like Renbrats. Renbrats are the Renaissance Festival vendors and performers kids. They're just always there every weekend. So you get to know them a lot more than you get to know the regular patrons. And so the following year, after doing Coronaburg Renaissance Festival, I'm there, I'm setting up the wagon, and I hear these little girls that had been there every day for the prior year run up and go, "The wishing fairy's here! The wishing fairy's here!" And I'm like, why didn't I think of that?
Wow. So back in 2002, you go, "Oh, I'm going to manifest a wagon."
2002, no, not at all. Like I said, it's okay. Wish is what is stated happens. You don't necessarily have to be putting brain power behind that. You don't necessarily have to be going, "I'm going to do this," or "I am that." Mm-mm. No, sometimes it's just as simple as having a thought and making an energy pocket or bubble, in my case, on it. And what happened is in 2002, I was on a promotion, a radio promotion. I was working for a radio station, and I'm on this promotion, and I'm in the Venetian Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mm-hmm. And I'm walking through the Grand Canal shops to get to the whatever I was going to. And I saw this kiosk, this little structure in the middle aisle. And I walked past it and I was like, "Oh, it's an Egyptian store. Look at that. That's so pretty." And I went, "What is it?" "It's an Egyptian store." And I thought, wow, it looks more like a fairy gypsy wagon to me. That'd make a really cool fairy gypsy wagon.
Wow.
That was the wish. And then a year later, it landed in my boyfriend's neighbor's front yard. It was in like right around the corner from his house. There it was in the driveway. And I thought, I've seen that before. What is that? So we asked the guy, who happened to be a family friend of my boyfriend's, and he was like, "Oh, it's a handmade, one-of-a-kind piece of art that was shipped over from Israel. It was in the Grand Canal shops at the Venetian Hotel." I'm like, "Oh, I saw that. That's right." He goes, "Yeah, it's an Egyptian store." I'm like, "I remember that. Wow, that's amazing. Well, how much do you want for it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's $70,000 new. I'll give it to you for $30,000. He's like, "Oh, the shipping costs that much." I'm like, I'm a single mom. I barely can afford. I'm paycheck to paycheck at this point, and there's no way I can afford that. So I just was like, "Well, that's really beautiful. I'm certain it's worth it. What am I going to do with it anyway?" And I'm so glad I didn't get it, because the following year, I was diagnosed with cancer. And at that point, I was a single mom running my own business. I started this little crafty thing with magic wish bubbles. It was the magic wish bubbles. But I was diagnosed with cancer and had to battle that. I lost everything. So I would have lost that too. So I'm really happy it didn't show up in my life. Well, I ended up having to move in with my boyfriend. And so every time that I would leave the neighborhood, I would take that little side road off and I'd sit in front of that wagon. It wasn't a wagon, it was a gazebo at that point because it had no wheels. But I would look at it and I'd go, that's mine. I don't know how I'm going to get it or what I'm going to do with it, but that's mine.
Wow.
And with maybe not every day, but frequently. And eventually we moved across town. We bought a house across town and we moved there. And so about once a month, I'd go see my mom who lived nearby, and I'd take a little moment and I'd speed through the little neighborhood and I'd sit in front of it and I'd go, that's mine. And I'd picture myself inside of it. I was picturing myself selling product out of it. And that's what it became at first, but going ahead here. Okay. So then 7 years after I saw it, in
so 2008 time frame.
Yeah, late 2008. It was almost 2009.
Okay.
He called. A few years prior, he had called up and said, "Does your girlfriend still want it?" He said, "My boyfriend says yes." He goes, $18,000. It's a deal. And there was no way.
He's negotiating at this point. He's like, he's just trying to find the right price.
Right. And somebody had offered him $12,000 for it, and he refused it. Right. So this is where the mindset is, it's money. Right. And so, but I don't have that kind of money. I just went through cancer. I lost everything, my house, my car, even the kid had to go live with his father for a little while. It was hard. So here I am, I'm rebuilding my world. We just bought a house across town. I don't have a place for it anyway. And he wants $18,000 for it. So no. So then a few years more goes by. This is late 2008. And he calls up my boyfriend and he goes, does she still want it? He goes, yeah. Why? And he goes, just come and get it out of my GD front yard. So I did. I drove down that like in an hour. I was there and I'm figuring out how to move it and I'm figuring out what I'm going to do. And I borrowed a trailer from my ex-husband. I got my geeky friends to strap on some those refrigerator movers, and we moved each little part and we put it on the trailer. And then it's like this huge ordeal all came together. One of our geeky friends, his father was a welder and an engineer, so he figured out how to get it together and on a trailer so I can move it, and even made me things to take it off of the trailer, even though I never want to do that again because it's
right.
And then but he put it together for nothing. It cost me nothing. Not even gas money. He did everything. I bought a trailer online for like a third of the price, and he let me make payments on it. The guy, it was just everything fell together exactly the way it needed to happen. It was just so magical.
Did you know though it was going to be what it was going to be at that point? You just knew you needed it or wanted it, and and suddenly it comes to you. It doesn't really cost a lot, a little bit. And, you had to get a trailer and you had to be nice to some people to help you out, but it didn't really cost you a lot. So you have this thing. Now, what are you doing with it? What's first going through your mind? Like, okay, I got it. What do I do with this thing?
That's pretty much exactly what it was. I got it. Now what do I do with it? Yeah. And I couldn't do anything with it at that point because my life wasn't structured that way. But the universe has a way of doing things that when the universe wants you to do something and you've put forth the feelings and anticipation that yes, I'm willing, and I totally did. I'm willing, whatever you want from me, I'm willing. And it just kind of fell together to where my life fell apart. So my life fell apart and then it came back together again as that. So at the 10-year mark, 2010. Yeah. 2010. I ended a 9.5-year relationship with the boyfriend amicably. We're still friends. And I lost 100 pounds. I finally got my teeth fixed because I have a super gray, like horrible smile. And, but all these things happened with no money. Like I had no job. My boyfriend was my boss. We ran a company together. So I had no more income. My house went into foreclosure. My son went into the Air Force. And this all happened between June 1st, 2009 and June 1st, 2010. Everything just fell apart. And I was like, you would expect me to be like, oh, everything's falling apart. I was more like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. I was the happiest person ever. I was just like, I don't know. I guess I don't need the house. I don't have the kid anymore. He's going off into the Air Force, so I don't need that. My mortgage payment went way through the roof. I was one of those people that got that mortgage through the crash, and that was me. I should have been the poster child for that one. And everything just kind of fell. I got rid of all my stuff, and I thought, well, I can afford this motorhome. And I bought a 1988 Fleetwood Pace Arrow off Craigslist, and moved my 3 big hairy dogs and I into that space, and we just started traveling. My motto was, I'm on a 3-year journey. I had no idea where I was going or what I was going to do or how I was going to make money or any of it. I just went, I'm on a 3-year journey.
Wow.
And sure enough, on the 2nd year is whenever my friend who had the wish wagon to be on her property said, I can't keep it here anymore. We need to use this space. So when you move from when you move from a big 2,800 square foot house into a 34 linear foot motorhome, there's a rule. Use it or lose it. You can't just keep everything in storage because this will cost you a fortune. It's just stuff anyways. I had already lost all my stuff once before with the cancer. So I just kind of I let everything go. And so all I had was what would fit in the RV, a little teeny spot for memories in my grandmother's or my mother's garage, and this wish wagon sitting on my friend's property. So when she said she couldn't keep it there anymore, I went out with it and I sat with it and I just sat inside of it. And I was like, why do I have you? What are you? What are you about? Why are you here? What am I supposed to do? Do I keep you? Do I get rid of you? Do I sell you? Can I sell you? And then pretty soon, everything's coming out in rhyme, and I'm getting this vision of this magical art space. This is before immersive art experiences were a thing, and now they're kind of a thing, but back then they weren't a thing. And I just thought, you know what if I could get like people to come in here and tour through it and see stuff, and I built it all up before and I used it as a shop, but it just didn't, it didn't make me money. I couldn't afford to run a shop out of there. And so I just ditched it after the 1st year. So that's why it sat. And then at this point I have to get rid of it. So I'm like, what am I going to do with it? And then this just visions of things came through of feeding the fairies and starving the goblins and wishes coming true. And wish stands for what is stated happens, and feeding the fairies is good, and feeding goblins is not good. And all my little lessons that I already was working on started coming out in rhyme. And so I'm a graphics designer. I do all kinds of promotions and publicity stuff. And so I just took those skills and I put it into this wish wagon, and I booked a show, and it didn't make any money at that show. And in fact, if anybody thinks, oh, wow, she must make tons of money on this. No, it was a labor of love. I've lived in absolute poverty for the whole 2010 to 2020. I was in absolute poverty. But I was so alive. And I was helping so many people, and seeing those little faces year after year come back and tell me how I just changed their world completely and how their life got so much better after whatever it was that I said that they needed to hear. It was just amazing. So I kept at it. But yeah, it started with just that looks like a fairy gypsy wagon.
So you were, where was that? Where was the very first place that you booked your show? I mean, where was that very first one that you went to?
Well, the very first show was at a little festival called First Friday in downtown Las Vegas.
Okay.
And people were scared of it. It was in the dark, and it was in a darker area. It's the first showing, so you don't know what you're up against yet. And things improved every year, and everything changed. Not everything changed, but lots of things changed every year. I got really good at it after a few years. But that first showing, it was in a dark corner next to like a blow-up slide, and people would, and it was right by. It was October. Yeah, it was October, and so people were scared that things were going to jump out at them.
So nobody came over. Nobody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a little stage, and I had one of my friends doing like fans and hula hooping and stuff to get people over. But when they would get close to it, they'd be like, "Something gonna jump out at me? Is it scary? I'm like, no, no. Or how much does it cost? I'm like, it's free. It's free. Go inside. It's lots to see. It's free." And I had a pretty steady flow for a little while, but people were still scared of it, and they still were a little, anxious. And so I started lightening it up shortly thereafter, and that made it a little easier. And I put lights on it, and I had microphones so you could hear me. And it's a learning experience. So the very first one was one night at First Friday, and it was a bear because it takes a long time to set up. It takes a long time to tear down. I was new at it. It was a crazy night. The first festival, where I did shows and that was at Coronaburg Renaissance Festival in Corona, California.
Oh.
And we hauled it out there. I stayed in my RV in the parking lot, and I performed 3 shows a day, 2 for the weekends, and it was a 7-week-long show, and I made $74 every weekend.
Oh,
yeah, it was hard. It was hard because my products are not they're nothing that you really need. It's something that it's more of a story with the product, and it's like $4 each or 3 for 10. Or I just want to make it easy for people to take this information home with them, and so it was more like you're almost paying my costs. But yeah, so on the 3rd weekend, I was distraught. I was like, it's too hot for my dogs. I don't have an air conditioner in this RV. My dogs, I had Akitas, so they had that thick coat, and it's too hot for them. And I'm don't have enough money to go to an RV park. What am I going to do? And then one morning I'm sitting there and I'm like, you're the, well, at that point I was the wish facilitator still, but I was like, you're a wishing person, so wish for it. Come on. And so instead of wallowing in my, oh my gosh, I just sat down and I was like, okay, I have a safe place to park with a plug-in that's free. And that was my wish. And I proved it to myself by saying, okay, well, I'm just outside of Norco, California, which is Horsetown, USA. So a lot of people have a lot of property. A lot of people have places to park RVs. A lot of people have plugins. A lot of people have that. So all I need is that person to enter my world and recognize me as I'm recognizing them, because I do feel like the universe, the fairies, go out and find what you're looking for. I think that they go out and you send the wish and they go, okay, got it. And they zip out there and they see what's going to match. And sometimes they bring stuff that's close, and you can go, okay, that's a hint. That wasn't it, but that's close. And then finally you just need to pay attention. I believe you need to pay attention to the signs you're being sent to say, go this way, talk to that person, say these things, whatever. And so that was a Sunday morning on I think it was the 2nd or 3rd weekend. Mm-hmm. That was the 3rd weekend that I was there, 2nd weekend of the fair. And it's the Sunday morning, and I go out after making that wish. About an hour later, I'm out at my wish wagon, and I'm setting it, getting it all ready to go for the festivities of the day. And the head of security comes over, and he goes, my wife and I were talking about you. It's got to be getting too hot down there for them dogs. And, you're probably getting eaten alive by bugs because you're right by that swamp, which was also part of my wish, was my wish, but my worry was, I'm covered in mosquito bites. And he's like, we got a nice safe place next to our barn. If you'd like to park there, there's a plug-in. You can stay as long as you like. And it didn't cost me anything. And that night I moved out there, and I stayed there for 2 years. That was my home base for 2 years. There was a beautiful pool. There was a huge horse. It was a horse ranch. So I got to see horses every day and ride farm equipment. That was fun for the city girl like me. My dogs got a place to roam. There were fresh eggs every morning, an organic farm, more than I could have even imagined.
Wow.
It was an hour and 20 minutes after making that wish, because it took me an hour to get out there, 20 minutes into my setup. He comes in and offers it to me. And that.
And the wish wagon stayed back at the festival kind of area, or it just
the wish wagon stayed
back and forth or whatever you needed to be.
Yeah, No, no,
Oh,
no. That didn't start until later on.
okay.
Whenever I started doing every weekend shows in different places and started actually touring.
So I love this idea of just like our mindset will bring us what we want and what we need. And we only met each other a couple of weeks ago, and this is kind of like part of the way this works. Penelope, is I started my show like back in August, and initially I was like reaching out and finding all these people, and at some point I went, that's kind of hard work. And it's like, and I went, you know what? People are just going to kind of come to me who are interesting, because the idea that I'm creating here is ordinary individuals living extraordinary lives. And so it's like, okay, people are just going to show up, and I'm still reaching out to people because there's people that I find interesting, but other people just show up, and you just showed up.
I just showed up. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the story was, but there was just like a friend introduces us because of a, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to do this and that. And then it was like, oh, that's not necessary. And then it's like, there was an option. It was like, okay, goodbye. Or there was the option of just like somehow having a little bit of a conversation, and a little tiny bit of a conversation goes. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, too cool. I need to talk to you. So this was like a manifestation of like just energy sent out there, because I want ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And, the Wish Wagon is really like right up that alley. And my goal is to go live and work from the road for the next 7 years.
Oh, it's so fun. So fun. Do it.
But I'm going to try to avoid the part where, like you make $74, like, every 3 weeks kind of thing. So, but it's okay. I'm doing it right now in a nice, safe spot. I was in a safe spot all this past year, and today's show number 140. So, I'm getting great practice at it. And the idea is I'm going to have my own wagon, except it's going to be like an RV, and it's going to have a studio in it. And I'm going to have people come in, and I'm going to interview them right inside the studio. And then they're going to like leave and go back to where they go. And I'm going to move the thing to somewhere else. And then other people are going to come in and do it. So it's all kind of happening. And so anyway, I love the adventure that you did on the road for all those years, because I kind of have like my own, wish to make that happen. So.
Well, I will, when you do that, not if, when you do that, I have a gift for your RV. This was in my RV. I got it just before I got my very first RV. And I looked at gazillions of RVs and talked to a lot of people. And one of the people that I talked to that had an RV that I didn't buy was a wire. He liked to make stuff out of wire.
Yes.
And he made me something. And this has been on my dashboard, and I'm going to put something behind it here. But it says Gumption.
Gumption. My goodness, look at that.
He made this for me because that was my motto, is that I am full of gumption. Yeah. And that's why I loved the title of your show. And but yeah, this is it, and it's got a little key. Gumption is the key.
Oh my gosh, that is magnificent. Look at that.
I will absolutely give you this, and this has been in every one of my RVs on the dashboard, like right there on the dashboard, so I can see it. I can see it every time I get weak or feel like, oh gosh, can I do this? I don't know. I'm thinking to myself, nope, I got gumption. So
I love it.
When you do that, you contact me and I will happily send you that wire.
We'll take like a nice picture. We'll have it like a picture of it, and we'll like, frame the picture, and you can have the picture. Like I'll keep the wire one, and because we don't need to carry all this stuff. I learned this 2 years ago. We don't need to carry all this stuff with us. We just have to take the experiences with us. And all that stuff becomes like, some of it becomes like anchors and holding us down and, keeping us from going out there and doing it. But anyway, we're sidetracking. Let's go back to your story. So you talked about the, what did you call the little kids that their mothers are the,
Rembrandts.
The Rembrandts, right.
Rats, yeah.
Festival
rats, yeah. It's the little kids that help you out whenever you don't need to be helped out sometimes, but they're really great for potty breaks, yeah.
So one of the things that I found in just sort of like, like snooping on your life in terms of just looking at your social media and your website and all of that is like, there's like a lot of like gypsy type people that you've come in contact with. So in other words, like it's like a lifestyle. Tell me about that. Tell people about like that whole, like, because sometimes people will look at it and go, well, that's kind of weird. Or it's like too far different than what their normal suburban lives of, so talk about that, like kind of gypsy lifestyle.
Oh, it is so much fun. So whenever you do festivals and fairs, you're dealing with people on your most common friend is going to be a performer or a vendor or somebody who's living their life the way that they're choosing to live their life, really. When it comes right down to it, festival performers, we do, and festival attendees, the normal everyday lives may be one thing, but then whenever they come to a Renaissance festival or an art festival or whatever, they do themselves up. I've got mermaid friends, unicorn friends, all kinds of cosplaying friends, people that love to dress up in costume and become a character. And so, I probably have, belly dancer, anything I need really is somebody I could call up and go, hey, can you do this for me on camera or whatever, which is what my next step in this evolution is going to be, is utilizing all of those friends. So
you're not unique because you lived through 2020. The world kind of came to a crashing halt in terms of like what people had. Not everybody, but many people at the beginning of 2020 had one vision of what 2020 was going to look like, and it completely upended their world. I'm guessing, were you planning to go out on the road and do another year of festivaling?
I was. I had a big plan to go out and do festivaling. I was buying camera equipment and lighting equipment so that I could do little skits with my friends wherever I was at. So like we would do our show on the weekend, and if we had light time, if it was one of those shows that ended early, like 6 p.m. when we still had light, then we could go out and shoot video of whatever skits I wanted to do, because I want to do a kids television series. I have a background in television broadcasting and promotions and marketing and advertising. And my past life all really supports that, especially when you take into account that I got my past life and then I've got this wonderful festival life with all kinds of performances and friends that perform and interesting magical characters to utilize who are already charactered. That I don't have to create their character. They already have their character. They already have their costuming, elaborate costuming that they love, and they love being this character. So that was my plan, to go to take all this stuff with me and shoot video, and I could edit, everything. I was ready to go. However, before 2020 happened, my life started to shift already. The universe set me very gently in a very safe place so that I could weather this storm. Because if I had gone out on the road, I would have been in big trouble, because there's no shows, and that's how I made my money. I was festival to festival. Some people are paycheck to paycheck. I was festival to festival. Right. And some festivals paid good, and other ones didn't pay at all. Sometimes I would trade for just a parking spot for a few extra days. So, but the universe takes good care of me. And so it set me at my grandmother's house. My grandmother, I got a call on December 11th, 2019 from my mother saying, can you go out and help grandma for a few days? She was going through cancer treatments and had just gotten out of the hospital, or was getting out of the hospital from pneumonia. So can you go help her for a few days? So that afternoon, I hopped on a plane with a bag for a couple days and headed out to grandma's house. Well, there's no way that grandma could live on her own anymore. At that point, she was 97 years old, and they actually gave her chemo for an incurable cancer. They already said that they can't cure it, but they can maybe give her some more time. So here she is, sick, living her life. And so I was like, well, I'll stay until my tour starts. And so I started booking my shows and booking my tour, and we figured that we'd probably put her in a nursing home or something like that. And then in February, they said it's time for hospice. You're not going to make it. I was wheeling her around the house, showering her, doing all the things that you never, ever, ever want to have to do for someone, but you will because you love them. And the universe lined me up again, perfectly lined me up. And we ended up curing her cancer. Mm. It was incurable. They said no cure for mantle cell carcinoma, no. Well, I listened to the signs that I was being sent, and all the right people fell into my line of sight. And so I put her on medical cannabis suppositories. So she's not like all wigged out or anything. And we started treating her. So I thought, well, I'm going to shift my shows to just Southern California so I can be here for her while she's going through this treatment.
Right.
And then the pandemic hit.
And now you're not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. So me, I'm like, but my life. And yet I had to appreciate the beauty of what had just happened. Because not only do I have a safe place to live, I have a paycheck. I saved my grandmother's life. She's 98 years old and doing great. She's doing great. We are down from being, she had a tumor in her neck, filled in her lungs and her gut. And we are down to one single little less than 2 centimeter tumor in her lung left from all of that. And so we're winning. We absolutely are winning. She's getting her strength back. So I was meaning to do this road life, but it's the 10-year mark. Remember at the beginning of this conversation, I said every 10 years my life takes a hard shift. So my life took a hard shift. So now what I'm doing is now that I have this huge house of which I get a few rooms and part of the garage, the attic, and I am building a kids TV series. And just figuring out how to shoot it with COVID restrictions and such is a little difficult. And being here with my grandmother, I need to and all my friends are all around the Western United States because I started touring in 2015. Started touring in 2015 all around the Western United States. I go from San Diego all the way up to Seattle.
Yep.
And so all my friends that are all these costume characters are all around that area, but they're willing. They're like, whatever you need us to do, it's good. We'll, set up cameras and whatever. So I'm just figuring out technically how to do it. And then I'll be able to shoot my kids' TV series and make a difference in this world media wise. It will be such a better reach too. I mean, when you do festivals, you have anywhere from 100 to 5,000 kids. Depending on the size of the show. And because my biggest show is like 80,000 people, so I probably have 10,000, 20,000 kids there. But do they all see me? Do I all get the message across? Do they all get it? Or are they whacked out on funnel cake with overstimulation and carnival rides, Wow. So
this is fantastic. I had no idea. Interestingly, I ended up leaving Montana after 10 years in 2019. I left in October. I got rid of everything. I gave up like a 40-year dream, a 20-year dream, and a 10-year dream. And I got rid of all this stuff. And I realized that it wasn't serving me anymore. And I knew that it was my time to go out into the world. And I cleaned out all this physical stuff and these commitment stuff, things that I was obligated to this and to that. And I got rid of all of it. And I went, I got to go out on the road. And my sister said, hey, why don't you come out? And our 92-year-old father is living here and, come out and stay for a few months. And next thing you know, it's been over a year because, and I've been in this very safe place. So it's very, very interesting the way the universe works. And I love what you're doing. I was thinking that, I don't even have to mention the first time guest thing because, she'll just be on there and she won't know about coming back a second time, but there's just more to talk about. So we'll have to figure out a way to get you to come back and continue this story, the kids show, what you're planning to do next. I mean, there's just more to it. I really do. We've already gone past the hour. It's not like it's a hard cutoff, but it's a good story. And some of your friends, I've seen the little video clips into the wormhole. We didn't have time to show any of that.
I love that you call it a wormhole. It's so fun.
Isn't that what it's called? Isn't that wasn't that the video?
No, it's the wishing portal.
Oh, the wishing portal. But it was some kind of a wormhole or something.
Would you like to see the wishing portal? I can take my computer in there.
Oh no! Well, we don't have time today.
Oh,
we're gonna come back, go and do it, and maybe we could do it where we could tour your vehicle. Whereabouts are you in Southern California? Or are you in Nevada, or where are you?
I'm in Southern California now. The Wish Wagon is in Nevada, in my friend's warehouse.
Okay.
And it's all torn down, so there's no touring that. But but I do have video of a tour of it when it's all set up. So I would love to share that with your guys.
Well, we'll have to. We'll get. I mean, we kind of just threw this together in terms of let's do it. But I'm going out on the road for the next couple of weeks. I'm doing a cross country trip because I had the opportunity to do it, and it's like,
come visit me. You're coming to Southern California. Come visit me.
Yeah, I am going to be. So we'll figure that out. I'm going to be there for about a week, and I'm filling out my schedule. But maybe we'll figure out where we can do it. Stick around. Let me play the closing song, and we'll talk, and we'll figure that out if we can do that. But this was a lot of fun, Penelope. You're really cool, and you're. I mean, I love the videos and stuff. I mean, it's like there's just wacky enough. And I remembered, and my monologue today was like stepping into character because I loved being the character. I got I was the character Forrest Gump, and it was magic, and people loved it, and it was. I mean, I did it for 15 years, and so it was kind of time for me to go do the next thing. But it was such wonderful. I didn't want it to end because it just but the chapters come and chapters go, and they close down. Interestingly, you said about the 10-year cycle. I had my own 6-year cycle going. For the first, first 24 years of my life, it was 6 years, that kind of a thing. And so I know what you're talking about. Where energetically we go, okay, it's time for something new, and this is the way it works. So fun stuff.
Yeah, it is fun.
You can have the last word, and then I'll say goodbye to you. And so wishwagon.org is the website. Let me just I'll just do this because I do have the screenshot. I'm just going to talk about your books real quick. I've got the 3 books that you had on your website.
Oh yeah, there's my book.
Yeah, the How to Feed the Fairies and Get the Goblin Goo Off of You, and the best wishes can still come true.
That's right. That's stress relieving techniques for kids. It's a teeny tiny little book. It's an itty bitty. Oh. And inside are all kinds of little illustrations and rhymes that teach you about help 3 people every day. It's a great way to feed the Fae. That's my favorite way to feed the Fae, is to help 3 people every day. And it's all in rhyme.
And then the little book of wishing, how to get your best wishes to come true.
Yes. I don't have a copy of those. I sold out of those, unfortunately. But yay, I sold out of those. But that one is my 4-step formula to getting your wish to come true. Just the little poems and pictures. But then the next one down, if you go one more.
Basically, the law of this one was the law of attraction, kind of explained for a child to understand.
Right. The other one that you just saw before was the one on how to shift your attitude, ways to feed the fairies, ways to be more positive, ways to help that flow. And remember, I mentioned that that it was help 3 people every day was one of them. That's what I do when I'm feeling down. If I'm feeling down, I either go out and I compliment people like crazy. I'll just find things to compliment people about because it brings up my energy, or I will find ways to help people because it brings up my energy. So it's a way to lift your vibrational energy. Wow. So this one right here, one is this is the big book. This has got the one that you just saw before that, where I said it was where you said it was the law of attraction. That is in this book too, where you got the pretty pictures.
Yep. Oop.
So you got all the pretty pictures and stuff, just like you would in that normal book, but then it goes to a regular pages of why this works, why you should make your wish present, positive, personal, and why these things work, and it also gives examples of when that wish came true because of that particular principle. Wow. So it's much more in depth. It's more of a strong reader at 8 would get it, but probably 12 and up. And I'm talking 12 to 200. It's great for adults as well as kids, teenagers, all of it. But the older kids are going to more understand it because it's more real life examples.
Yeah, that's great.
The other two books are great for a 5 and 6 year old.
You have your fan club is showing up. Christy loves your story, and she's paying you compliments. She thinks you look amazing. So I think so too. You're fun. I loved having the conversation.
I know Christy. I grew up with Christy.
All righty. Well, that's it. We're going to get out of here, but what a fun show this was. And we'll figure out like I'm going to be in Southern California. So we'll figure out if our paths can cross, in a couple of weeks, and otherwise we'll get you to come back virtually and do a show this way at some other time to kind of, figure out where you're going with this kid show. Cause I love this.
Yeah, I'd love to tell some stories too. Some of my little poems and things to help people. So
you're not shy, are you?
Surprisingly, no. I'm an introvert. I would much rather be just curled up with me and my dog, but no, I have an extroverted life. So,
well, yeah. It's funny you say that too, because I was always very balanced on the introvert extrovert. I'm more extroverted. I love that, going out, but I need a lot of, I need a lot of recharge. I need a lot of, personal quiet time too, to keep me at a nice, healthy, pace going. So anyway, I get that, ambivert, I think is what they call it, an ambivert.
Ambivert, so, that's right. Ambivert. Yeah,
very good.
I'm an ambivert.
Alrighty. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have you back again sometime. But we can't play the song, okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a great day. Wow. So that was fun. I didn't know what to expect really, other than we're going to talk about, traveling around. We're going to talk about kind of a gypsy lifestyle, fairies and, law of attraction meets Dr. Seuss. So, but Penelope and the wishwagon.org was a great conversation. And she's got more stuff coming up. I mean, we're going to have to find out about the kids show and what that all entails, and maybe take a tour of the wish wagon. So we'll figure all that stuff out. Alrighty, so that's it. Let me just tell you what's happening tomorrow. Christy Holt, Vibionic CEO, a way of measuring your voice vibration to tell you what kind of a mood you're currently in. And so it's a way of increasing your emotional intelligence, greater awareness, using science to actually give you feedback on, if you're feeling a little bit, maybe not so energetic, you kind of have a way of testing, and then it'll give you some feedback. And then once you understand what's happening, you can make modifications and changes in your life. So that's tomorrow. Christy Holt, Greg Thompson, who is an agent and entertainer, and I met him through the Celebrity Impersonators group of people, Sunburst Convention, but he has the celebrityimpersonator.com domain. He purchased that recently, and he's going to talk about what he plans to do with that. That'll be on Friday's show. Next Tuesday, Amy Gray Cunningham comes back. We're going to talk about the Akashic Record, and she did an Akashic Record reading with me. And then Wednesday, I've got a show with our fitness misfit, Stacy Redfield. And then I'm getting on a plane after that show. And then next Thursday, Friday from California, and the week after from Southern California. That's it, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow with Christy Holt. All righty. That's it.